everyone. So first of all, thanks for the organization. I think the talks up until now have been great, and I hope you're enjoying. So I'm here to talk about the continuous delivery journey that we have been doing at OutSystems in the last years. So this will be the agenda. I will speak a little bit about me and OutSystems, and then I will tell you about our journey to continuous delivery that we divided in 3 phases. We call the first one the efficiency phase, the second one the acceleration phase, and the third one the autonomy phase. And then at the end, I will leave you some takeaways that I think you should take from this presentation. But along the way, I will tell you a little bit about some lessons that we have learned during this journey. So, about me. My name is Diogo Oliveira. I'm a senior software engineer at OutSystems, and I'm specially focused on everything that is related with continuous delivery. And about OutSystems, whoever has heard about OutSystems here already? So a lot of people, cool. So OutSystems is an international company that has its R&D based in Portugal, namely here in Lisbon and also in Braga. And what we're doing is we are creating a platform for a low-code rapid application development platform to create enterprise-grade mobile and web applications. We provide our platform both as an on-premises offer and also a platform as a service offer. So regarding technologies, we are using a lot of different technologies, both to develop the product and to provide to our customers, like integration with different databases, like SQL Server or Oracle. And because of these, we have a big challenge related with quality assurance of our product. Because we have multiple stacks, multiple browsers and devices, and since we have around 30,000 automated tests, we need to test the combinations of these different stack supports. So this is a challenge for us, and this context will be relevant for our journey. So let's start from the beginning, the context before we started our journey. So we were releasing a major version of OutSystems product every 2 years. We had a central maintenance team. There was a team that was responsible for fixing bugs in the product and replying to some support cases. We had a problem which we call the reintegrate L that has to do with the fact that we had a lot of branches under active development at the same time. And so every time we needed to make a release, the different teams needed to reintegrate all the branches to the main one. And this sometimes would take like 1 week or 2 or even more in worst cases. We had a monolithic product. We also had very long feedback loops, both development feedback loop and feedback loop from the customer to the product teams. We had a very painful product stabilization because since we support so many stacks, before we made a release, we needed to make sure that all the stacks were stabilized and working well. We had lack of a clear product and test ownership. We had not a sustainable CI/CD practice at all. And also, our infrastructure provisioning was, both for build and test purposes, was manual. We had no automatisms here. So as you might imagine, this context was highly inefficient for us, and it would not allow us to scale in any way. And so we understood that we needed to be much more efficient, and this is where our efficiency phase began. So the context where we started this journey is that we were having a new project at our R&D that was releasing a new major version with support for generating native mobile applications. So up until this point, we were only generated web applications. Now we were going to support mobile native applications. And so this was a project shared across many teams in our department. So we would need good collaboration between the teams. And we would need that the work from different teams was continuously integrated into the same code base. And also, this was a high-risk project. So we needed to release it more frequently, even if it only internally, because we needed to test it live and see it working. And Of course, we had a lot of people working on these, and our company was growing in terms of developers, so we also needed to have continuous feedback on changes over the product. So this was the context where this started. So we clearly needed to do something here, and we decided to start tackling these in 3 different ways at the same time. These were parallel tracks. So the first one was continuous integration and delivery. So at this time, we understood that not everyone in the organization was aware of what continuous delivery was, what did it mean, and how far or how close were we to practicing it. So we did a presentation to the whole department explaining what continuous delivery was, why we were not there, and why we wanted to be there. And this is something that had a very disruptive effect in our organization. So we learned here with these that people need to be aware of their challenges and the value of tackling them, because if they are not aware of the problems, if they don't know how their life can be better if they tackle them, they will have no motivation to do anything. And so, because they learned about the challenges and they became motivated, we had a group of developers that by themselves decided to create a system which they called Cynthia, that stands for Continuous Integration and Intelligent Alert System. There was a system that basically at this point started processing each commit, each code commit, and running a set of validations over that commit. For example, the compilation and running a set of tests. And this was the look of the first version of this system. And so, some more lessons learned here with this initiative. One of them is that we do believe that empowering development teams to have this kind of initiatives should be encouraged, because they had a motivation, they had a problem to solve, and so they started solving it, and they did it very well. Also, we learned that we need to invest on infrastructure from day 0, and it was a concern here. So from this point, our infrastructure provisioning was not manual anymore. And still related with infrastructure, we have learned that elasticity and reliability are crucial, enable for us to have fast feedback loops and scale CI/CD. And so this system that they created, we used GoCD to orchestrate the pipeline. So that image that I've shown before was just the UI that we created over GoCD. It had automatic failure assignment, so as you saw from the image, every time someone broke a test, the face of the person committing was there. It executed the tests on all the tests of our main stack. It had a much faster feedback loop at this point. We started using every parallelization using discardable agents, so not only automated infrastructure provisioning, but we started also to leverage discardable environments for us to always have a clean infrastructure to test our product. And we made it visible, and this was also very important for us. So we had televisions across the office where people could see the status of this system at any time. And this is another lesson learned here, is that constant visibility over your build pipeline is essential for everyone to be engaged and aware of what's going on. And this is something that Mirko also mentioned in his talk, but it's that you should treat your build pipeline and your infrastructure as a production system. It's not a side project or a side track. You really need to treat it as a product and think how to evolve it every day and how to make sure that it still helps developers achieving what they want to achieve. So another track was the development model. So we created a strategic project here, which we call the Rethinking R&D Development Model. This project had no development at all. It was only strategic. We got a lot of people together to discuss about this topic, and we came up with some changes in the way we were developing. So we came up with some development and quality assurance best practices. We created a new release model, and we also decided to start working in single branch. Single branch per each major version at least, because we need to, due to our support model, we need sometimes to support the previous versions. And so we decided to work in a single branch per each major version. And we learned with these that working in single branch might be very hard at the beginning and very challenging, because people are not just used to working that way. But for us, and at least in our context, we do believe that it is the right way to go. And it has been working quite well, so it's cool. This is a brochure that came from that rethinking project. I think you can see it here because it's very, so I won't go into too much detail, but basically it has guidelines about branching, quality, and releases. The slides will be sent, and also I will leave my email at the end, so if you are interested, I can send you the full version of this, the readable version of this, let's say. And so the third thing we did here was about our organization structure. So we decided to reorganize our department to have our teams more aligned with the desired product architecture, which is has to do with the Conway's law that Manuel also mentioned. And apart from this, we also decided some other things at this point. One of them was that maintenance was not anymore responsibility of a central team. So maintenance started to be done inside each team. Teams have much more autonomy and ownership, which they didn't have before. So as I said before, we didn't have a clear ownership over product and tests, for example. From this point on, teams started to have that ownership, which allowed them to, for example, re-architecture some parts of the system or invest on quality infrastructure. And so, yeah, we learned here, and it was said before already here today, but we really do believe that ownership and autonomy are crucial to drive the product and the test evolution in the team. Without it, it becomes very hard. Okay, so then we were tackling the efficiency problem, but some of our developers, since the teams now have more autonomy and ownership, started to say, but hey, now that I'm autonomous on my product part, why do I need to wait for those guys to finish their 2-year project to make my releases? And the management, yeah, these guys are thinking very well. And this is where we understood that we needed to accelerate. So we were more efficient already, but we were still releasing with that cadence I mentioned before. And some teams wanted to go just to go faster, and we needed to provide them what they needed to go faster. And so this is where the second phase, the acceleration phase, began. So what was blocking our acceleration? Many things, but one of them was that we had a monolithic product and we were releasing the product as a whole. Although we have different sub-products, we were always shipping everything as a unit. So, and just to give you, I won't get into much details on our sub-products because that's not very relevant here. But the thing is that we have some sub-products that have usually a lower change risk, and the upgrade on customer is usually smooth and easy to revert if something goes wrong. And also, those are products that have more incremental value, which is the example of our IDE, for example, the one on the left. And then we have some components of our product that usually have higher change risk. The upgrade process and reverting that upgrade is usually implies more effort. And the work being done there is usually more disruptive and more large scale. And so we thought, we are still releasing altogether, aren't we wasting some opportunities here? Okay, and so that's what we did. We split everything, the validations, the build pipeline, release pipeline, and we start releasing independently. That's what we did. We started releasing those products independently with different release cadences, some of them even weekly or less than that, but I will get into that later again. But that was it. And also, for us to be able to release those products faster, taking that decision was not enough. So we needed to really compress all of our feedback loops. So one of the things we did was compressing the feedback loop of our build pipeline that now takes less than 1 hour. But this hour is not the developer commit time, it is the time to run every validation that we need to do to make a release of the product. So in less than 1 hour from the commit, developers have that information. We started leveraging that dogfooding a lot. So we, inside our R&D department, started to use our own product to create applications that were useful for the department. And now we are also using this dogfooding technique in our digital department, which is a department inside OutSystems that has everything, almost everything done in OutSystems. And so they are one of our largest OutSystems factories. And so we are always testing the new versions that are not out there yet inside the real usage, and we can get data from them. And another thing here was that we start using telemetry. So we are instrumenting the code to understand a lot of things, but the two main things we want to take from here is to learn how our users using the product. So what's the usage patterns, if they are using that feature as we supposed they would be using it, if we need to change the feature, if nobody uses that feature. So this is basically getting data-driven, so taking decisions based on data. And this will also provide us some information about issues with the product ongoing, like crashes or the product just hanging. Another thing to go faster, so some lessons learned here is that we understood that having a fast feedback loop is not a choice. It really needs to be fast, because if it's not, people will be already working on another topic, and so the context switching is very bad here. And of course, we needed, and especially when we are going faster, we can leverage going faster to use the information on how our users using the product to improve the product and get the product that the users they want at their hand. So, and the other topic here was that to go even faster, we needed to aim to get value at customers' ends right now and as soon as possible. And to tackle this, we started implementing auto-update mechanisms in some of our products. We are doing it for our IDE, although users can opt out if they want to. We are also doing this with another product, another sub-product of OutSystems, which is Lifetime. We are doing automatic rollouts to the cloud version, to the platform as a service version of OutSystems. We also created a beta version of our IDE. This beta version is, and by the way, I'm not selling, this has the same stability as the stable version. The difference is that it has new features that are not out yet in the stable version, but in terms of stability, it's the same. And of course, we had to start, and this is very related with the single branch problem. So when you are working in single branch and we want to put the product out there as soon as possible, you can't just have unfinished code out there or untested code. So we are leveraging feature toggles a lot here to make sure that the code can be delivered at any time, even if there is development effort going on. And so a lesson learned here is that if you really want your customers to use the latest versions of your product, and especially when your product is not a website. So, for example, for us in OutSystems, this is a challenge because our IDE needs to be installed on the developer machine. So you have to make sure that the developer installs it. So the distribution channel is usually harder. But what we learned is that if you really want them to be using the latest versions you should control the full distribution product cycle until it's in the end of the customers and really being used. And so we were going pretty fast, but we still had a problem here. We needed on some specific teams to perform some tasks. And so we understood that everyone needed autonomy at this point. After efficiency and going faster, we needed to be more autonomous. And that's our autonomy phase, which is still ongoing now. But the context here is that the knowledge about release and build pipeline was in a specific group of people, which was the engineering productivity group. Those who read the book about how Google tests software might have heard about this productivity term. We got inspired from there. But basically, this group was the only group of people that was making releases, and it was the only group of people that was maintaining and evolving the build pipeline system. And this means the build pipeline itself and all the ecosystem around it, like the infrastructure. And so we also want to change this because if we don't do it, we won't be able to scale because we have bottlenecks in our delivery process. And so we started by enabling the autonomous release process of the product. So we automated the release process that still had some manual steps before. And we now have a one-click release which teams can click when they want to make a new release of their product parts autonomously. And we also started enabling the change of the build pipeline, ecosystem, and infrastructure. So we are starting to leverage pipeline as code for our build pipelines, which we were not before. So now developers can go there. The code is shared with anyone, and it's code after all. Developers love code. And we also started doing some other changes, like implementing a modern and easily changed build system, which is other problem we had. Our build system ran in different ways in a developer machine or on the release process. We are starting to make these more holistic, and we are using, by the way, Cake build to do it. And so this is an ongoing effort. We still have a lot of things to do on this topic. So I hope that in some time I can come here or any other place to share the rest of this journey. And so another learning here is that in order to grow and scale, teams should have full control on how they validate and release their product parts. You can't just depend on some teams or some people, because if you do that, you will always have a bottleneck there, and we don't want that. We want to scale. So just to wrap it up, some takeaways from this presentation that I like to give you. Some of them are summaries of the lessons learned I've told you about already, but so to sum it up, regarding autonomy, we do believe that teams need autonomy on their product areas, and they need autonomy and control on their whole delivery process. About infrastructure, it really should be a concern from day zero, because it can block your growth if you don't do it. And so that infrastructure being elastic and reliable is crucial for you to scale the way you want, when you want. About feedback, so developers should, and they really need to have very fast feedback on their product changes. They need to know if their change broke some part of the product or something else. And we also need to be aware of how our real users are using the product, so that we can take the correct data-driven product decisions. Also, last but not least, you should treat your build pipeline and the infrastructure and everything as a product. It's not a side project, it's an important product, it's a crucial product. And also, the build pipeline needs constant love. So it's a system that you need, for example, to watch out for feedback loops. We are under 1 hour, but you have to take a look to make sure that it suddenly doesn't start growing. And so this is very important. And so this is the final takeaways I would like you to take. And so that's it. Here's my contact if you want to reach me out. And I think there's time for some questions. So, yeah.
Thank you for your talk. My question is, why do you think that single branch development is so important?
Yeah, I knew that would probably be a question. The thing is that and this is a very debatable topic, I know, out there. The thing is that we have learned from our past experience, and we have suffered a lot by not having a single branch. So to give you some more numbers, in 2014, I guess, that was before we started this, we had around 30 active branches under development. And the thing is that they were not small living branches. So they sometimes took the duration of a project, and at the end of the project, people would merge. So we needed to schedule reintegrate slots. So we suffered a lot from having many branches. And so we decided to try it out and work on single branch and see if it worked. And the fact is that it worked very well for us. So as I said, at the beginning, it was hard because people sometimes ask, now I haven't finished code, like, now we can't release a product. And okay, let's learn together and let's apply things like feature toggles or branch by abstraction. And so since then, we have been working on a single branch, and we do believe that it reduced a lot our effort in our development and release process. That's why it's important for us. But still not saying it's the best idea for everyone. It depends a lot on the context, but that's what we did, yeah.
Thank you. I have another question. May I? Do you have a specific trigger or a schedule to do a release?
Yes, more or less. So in some of our products, we have like release trains. So we have scheduled dates where the release has to be done on that date. For example, on our IDE, we are being more relaxed now. Since we are releasing it more frequently and having the autoplay thing, we sometimes even release it more than once a week. So for that ones, there are not specific schedules. For our server part, for example, which is larger scale, for that one we have, yeah. We do.
Thank you.
Hi, good talk.
Hello.
So now that you have multiple versions running and deploying incrementally across multiple components, how do you do systems integration testing where we accounting for the different versions that you might have in production for multiple customers?
Okay, so you're talking about, if I understood correctly, about having different products, different subproducts of OutSystems that are that have potentially different versions. Okay, so that has a lot to do with the way that our development and build pipeline systems are built. So first of all, we always have a rule not to break compatibility. For example, if a new version of our IDE goes out, it cannot break compatibility with the version of the server that is out there. And what we are doing also in our build pipeline is that, for example, in the build pipeline that we are testing our IDE, we have a stage that runs tests against the latest platform version that we have. And the latest is not necessarily, it's on one end the one that is out there, and on the other end, the versions that are being produced correctly. So to answer your question, we are not actively testing against all the possible combinations of versions that are out there, but the way we are developing the product and validating it ensures that we are not going to break compatibility, because we just are not allowed to do that in that way. Yeah. Any more questions? That's it. Thank you.